Tales from afar, stories to burn, dodgy old geezers and lessons to learn. From Alfred to Jerry, the scamps and the graft, they're spilling the beans and having a laugh. Mark, Annie and Pete, they're talking matter for you. Old school charm and a pint or two. So press play now, don't miss a treat. You'll love the stories, put it on the slate. Tales galore and so much more. So listen now with her indoors.
One. Hello there. I'm Pete.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Mark.
Welcome back to Minder on the Slate, our podcast celebrating all things Minder. Each week, we rewatch, review, and rate a classic episode of this fantastic series. So, Pete, what are we up to today?
Well, today, Andy, is a special topical bonus episode wherein we discuss the 1982 television movie, The World Cup, A Captain's Tale.
Yes, to tie in with the World Cup, the 2026 World Cup, which at time of recording, England are still very much a part of. We decided to do a one-off special looking at the production, starring and produced by our very own Dennis Waterman.
Broadcast in 1982 on the eve of the 1982 World Cup, the film tells the unlikely tale of how a small low-league team from a mining town in County Durham represented England in a very early version of something resembling the World Cup. So, Pete, is this a blatant cash grab, jumping on the bandwagon? What on earth has this got to do with Minder?
Well, at face value, Andy, very little. However, not only does it feature our Dennis in his Minder prime in 1982, and I think the fact that he was getting films made speaks to his standing in the industry at the time. It also features a whole host of memorable Minder guest stars. It's very, very funny. It's very, very interesting. It's immensely topical, and nice to see that Mark's dressed up for the occasion. And you know what? We haven't done an episode for a few weeks now, and I missed you, lads.
Oh, we missed you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're having a little break at the minute, but we'll be back to discuss Series 2, and we're chomping at the bit. So before we get into the film itself, I'm just going to give a little history lesson, if you will indulge me, about the true story of the true story of the West Auckland football team who represented England in the World Cup.
I would say, Andy, assume the vast majority of people listening know nothing about this. I think that's the safest position to start from.
Well, I assume that we know nothing as well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll do our best. So I think the story starts with the British millionaire Sir Thomas Lipton, he of the tea fame, and he was honoured by the Italian government in 1904 with some spurious title or other, and he asked what he could do in return to return the favour. And they suggested a sporting competition, ideally football, with nations of the world competing. And this finally came to fruition in 1909, with teams from Italy, Germany and Switzerland competing. The English FA, in their typical English FA-ness, decided not to send a team. So, and it's quite unclear how or why West Auckland were chosen. I think we'll get into this in the story. In the film, they come up with an explanation, but not sure that's exactly true, but we'll get into that. But represent us they did, and the team was made up of miners from County Durham, and they travelled to Turin, and they beat, to the astonishment of everyone, they beat everyone. So they beat FC Stuttgart, I think, and then they beat in the semi-final 2-0, and then they beat FC Winterthur, Switzerland, in the final 2-0. And to prove the result wasn't a fluke, West Auckland returns to Italy 2 years later in 1911 to defend the title, winning again and beating Juventus 6-1 in the final. Now, I think the film we're about to discuss kind of mixes both stories together, doesn't they, with both tournaments together. So in the film, they played Juventus, am I right?
You're right, and I wasn't aware that they'd done that, but it makes sense. It's more of a thrilling climax. I know a thing or two about a thrilling climax. Yeah, no, I think you've covered it quite succinctly there,
Thank
Andy.
you.
Yeah, and the film takes all the myths that have built up around it and the possible stories, and it builds it into, you know, a nice, plausible story suitable for TV. A little bit like a music documentary these days. When you watch them, you go, "Well, none of that happened in that chronology." Or no, no. But it's the point is, you're making a film, you're making a story about it, and you're getting the story over, and I think they do it really well, and it's a
Yeah, I
very
mean,
enjoyable watch.
yeah, and I think the thing that they have in their favour, the filmmakers, is no one can say, "Well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen," because no one really knows. I don't think. I don't
Mm.
think it's been that widely reported, and I don't think it was that widely documented at the time.
No, I would agree. Which, yeah, that's a bit mind blowing that it's so underdocumented. I mean, I think the thrust of the film is it's basically, and the narrative that's emerged around this, like this was one of those mythical shows that was talked about loads when I was a kid.
Mm.
I think the narrative is it was the first World Cup, and it's not quite as straightforward as that. But even then, even in view of the fact that it's not as quite straightforward as that, the whole thing seems to be woefully like underdocumented.
Yes, it does.
Like just in prep for today's recording, obviously we've all done the various googling and stuff like that, just trying to find pictures of the players and stuff like that. Can find one team picture and that's
It's
that.
virtually nothing. I mean, I was wondering, do you think because I mean, it's obviously a very long time ago, but the fact that it was a poor mining town and they probably didn't document it that much at the time. I think they mentioned in the film a few of them can't read or write, and
Yeah,
probably not much was written down, I would guess. And so a lot of it is just pure guesswork, I guess.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think a lot of it will have just gone by. A lot of the stuff will have gone by the wayside, getting ahead of ourselves slightly. But I read that the captain, Bob Jones, played by Dennis Waterman, his coin or his medal that he won with the markings on, it was sold at auction a few years back, not for loads. There was another one already in known existence that lived somewhere else, maybe in a museum or something. And a previous one had been found in a car boot sale.
Oh, really?
So maybe stuff just got passed down and people didn't quite, know what to do with it. So would it be worthwhile me just giving a little bit of an overview about how the film came to be? Would that be helpful?
It would be very helpful because I have no idea. Say, I've tried to do some research, but there's very little about the film. I think we should tell people it's available on YouTube to watch. You can't, it's not on DVD or Blu-ray or anything like that. So I think you can get some VHS copies on Amazon or eBay or
Yeah,
whatever, but it's not, the copies on YouTube aren't great either.
they're not.
I'm surprised there hasn't been picked up, you know, in the build up to things like the World Cup. I'm surprised like That's TV or Rewind TV haven't picked up this sort of
Mm.
thing to show. Bearing in mind the actors who are in it are very much of the era and the sort of stuff that they're showing now.
Yeah, it's a
So
fantastic
it would make
cast, isn't it?
sense. Yeah, yeah, incredible.
Totally.
And yeah, and saying it's a bit closer to what is now the World Club Championship that Chelsea won in 2025 or whatever than the actual World Cup. But it's definitely a forerunner of the idea that became the World Cup in 1930.
Yeah, definitely. And I also
No.
read that, I said about the FA, that England didn't join the World Cup till 1950 either, so they refused to take part and then lost to America in 1950. They
Really?
did go. Yeah, when they did go, yeah.
Wow. Bloody
Yeah.
hell.
So there you go. So
Interesting.
so give us a little bit of an idea what the story of the production, if you
Yeah.
can.
So basically, as we know, Dennis must have done, I reckon, 2 series of Minder by now. And although it hadn't necessarily totally catapulted into the mainstream, I think it's fair to say that the momentum was there. And by the end of series 2, I imagine it was starting to really take a hold in terms of the national conscience.
Easy for
Anyway.
you to say.
So he said, he was in his toilet, in his downstairs toilet. He used to keep just daft little trivia books and stuff like that to read when he was, contemplating life and so forth on the pan. something in a book caught his eye, and it was just 2 or 3 paragraphs about this story, and he thought it was a fantastic story. He thought it had great potential. He got in touch with his mate Deke Arlon, and they set about making a sports film. I think they originally envisaged it as a a feature with a release, a la Escape to Victory, that kind of thing. So they got a few people on board, including the director. Is it Tom Clegg? Have I made that
Tom
up?
Clegg, yeah.
It is
yeah,
Tom Clegg. I shouldn't have doubted myself. Who directed loads of Sweeney. He directed the second Sweeney film. He directed McVicker,
He
etc.
directed Minder, more importantly.
Did he?
Yes.
Shit, I missed that bit. Sorry. How many episodes did you do, Andy?
3 or 4, maybe. Can I look it up? Well, you carry on.
No, well, I'm amazed. I'd be amazed that if he hadn't, but I hadn't picked up on that. In actual fact, I thought he hadn't, so apologies.
Yeah, he did 4. Oh, he did some. Oh, yeah. So he did The Beer Hunter in series 2, which is the classic. Yeah. Rembrandt Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Looking for Mickey, and also Dream House. So there's a connection there.
We'll come back to Dream House, won't we?
Yeah.
We'll come back to Dream House. So they hired this a mate of his who was an actor and a writer who was football mad, and they hired him to write the script. He somehow managed to wangle a trip over to Whitley to research. Sure enough, time was going on, and he actually couldn't, further to your point earlier about a lot isn't known, he couldn't find a lot of information in terms of records abroad, etc., etc. There just wasn't a lot of info there. Not least, nobody quite knew why this team had been selected. And there's theories abound, and the film explores some of them, which we'll come to. But despite his best efforts, just couldn't get to it. So they kept ringing him up saying, how you doing? How you doing with it? He's like, oh, well, I've done 6 pages. And they're like, what? You've been working on it for months? He's like, yeah, but it's all in my head. They rang him a week later. He's like, I've done 9 pages. What? But apparently, I mean, obviously, it's all probably hyperbole, but a point came when they were like weeks away from submitting it for like final sign off and funding, and he still hadn't finished it. They gave up their hopes of a film release and decided that telly was the way forward. Waterman's co-producer had good, or maybe it was Tom Clegg, I'm not sure. One of them had good in at Yorkshire Telly, which Dennis Waterman would have in later life. And they put them onto Tyne Tees Telly, which was a subsidiary of Yorkshire Telly. And they went for it, and they were up for it, not least presumably because of the regional connection. So the script came in late, and then, yeah, that was how it came to be. Dennis Waterman having a number 1, maybe a number 2, and certainly a sit down in number 1.
Yeah.
That's how the film came to be, and they got it together on time, in time for the 82 World Cup.
And do we know how they came up with such a great cast? What attracted? Because it doesn't sound like there was a huge amount of money behind it. I mean, I know Dennis put a lot of his own money into it, but he's absolute brilliant British cast.
Yeah, no, in terms of everyone got paid the same, apparently. So by which I assume it means the main players. They did have auditions, and the strength of whether or not you made it was your accent, whether or not you had a, let's say, Durham accent, or probably a Geordie accent would have sufficed generally, and whether or not you could actually play footy. Waterman said, well, basically I was the producer and I was the lead, also we know he could play football and could run around, etc., etc. So he was sorted, but the others had to go for it. And in terms of the cast, yeah, unclear. I mean, it is really a top class cast all round.
And the football scenes are quite good.
Yeah,
the football scenes are quite good, because a lot of TV shows or films that try and do football make it an absolute shambles, and it looks totally unrealistic. This one, it's pretty good. I mean, there's an early challenge from Tim Healy that goes in. It's a proper bit of football, and you're saying, okay, they're not doing badly with this, particularly because they're playing on what effectively Dust Bowl pitches.
Apparently, and whether this was for that scene or the later scenes when they're actually in Italy, the director said, just play a normal game of football for a while, and he filmed that and then they specifically recorded the particular moments, like the sliding. What was it Tim Healy says? It was a sliding tackle, but he went in too soon or didn't go in soon enough. I can't remember the phrase.
Yeah, he something like, I just didn't get to the slide in or something.
That was it.
It was a slide.
I think it's a good tackle. I wouldn't have given a penalty for that. I think it's a perfectly good challenge.
So yeah, that was the technique. Just film them normally, these actors having a normal game of football.
That's what it looks
against
like.
each other, yeah. And then when there is special up close bits, they did that separately. Worth noting, I mean, there was no women on as part of the production team. So it was basically a load of actors and probably overspill from the Euston crowd on location in the Northeast and then Italy. So by all accounts, there was, and as you can imagine, Oban, Healy, just those two names alone, Hutchinson.
Hutchinson, yeah.
I mean, as you can imagine, it was probably quite a wild or quite a boozy shoot, but nonetheless.
Jeremy Bullock as well.
Yes. I mean, it's a really fantastic cast.
I mean, both Dennis and Tim Healy are on record as saying it was their most enjoyable filming experience. Now, whether that was at a certain point and, they changed their mind later on, but they have both been on record as saying it was their most enjoyable filming experience.
What's not to like, especially if you like football?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love the going out drinking and chasing birds bit and stuff like that. The playing the football bit, I'd be less bothered, but and in Italy. So yeah, it was they pulled it together, and I'm not sure if there was any other Waterman productions after that, like on telly. I know he did that film Cold Justice, which was a bit sort of catastrophic for him.
So was it that was catastrophic? Because I kind of had the feeling that he lost money on this, or am I mixing it up with Cold Justice?
I think you're mixing it up, mate.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying he didn't put his own money in. Apparently, Tim Healy said, none of us really had any money, but Dennis made sure we were all fed well and we all had a drink and we all had a good time, basically. So yeah, that's the and it was the beginning of why I hadn't realised quite strong friendship between Dennis Waterman and Tim Healy.
And that sort of shines through on screen. I mean, Tim Healy, I think, is probably the star of the show in this for me. Dennis is quite understated, even though he's like the headline and he's put the money in and he's the captain of the team. It's his ball, all that sort of thing. But Tim's got a lot of the best lines and a lot of the funniest moments, and really, obviously he wasn't yet Dennis in Or Vida St. Pet, was he? He was about to be Dennis in Or Vida St. Pet, so his profile would have been a bit lower. But he really stands out in this.
Let's come back to the Or Vida St. Pet stuff in a bit, if you don't mind. I have a few thoughts that I'd like to share with you on them. But you're totally right about Dennis Waterman doesn't get any of the funny lines. He's the anchor, but he's the quiet man. It occurred to me, obviously there's this narrative that, he left Minder because, and I don't think it's as simple as it's made out to be, but basically he's gone on record as saying, it'd become the Arthur Daly Show, and an unpleasant interpretation of that could be, his ego couldn't quite handle that. I don't think that's fair, but if we're going to talk about egos, look at this production. He's basically brought it to life. He's in it. He does his job pretty well. His accent's a bit shaky on occasion.
You wait for ours, Pete.
But the thing, I think the thing that stood out for me, because I don't think I'd ever seen this before, and he's not really in it that much. It's not like, so it's not like, I don't think he's even credited as at the start, is he? Or is he? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's right. I think it's right at the front. It's Dennis Waterman.
Oh, okay.
It's right at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll need to see that again. But yeah, he's not really. And Tim Healy and Richard Griffiths get most of the dialogue, most of the best bits,
and Nigel Hawthorne as well got some great lines.
Yeah, yeah. And there's one bit I was going to ask you, Pete, whether you said that originally it was going to be a feature film. Do you think there's quite a bit edited out, or whether they just never filmed stuff? Because there's a bit where a lot of the lads go off to have a beer and then they end up in a brothel, don't they? but some of the lads go to see the Turin Shroud. But then Dennis and Richard Griffiths are supposed to be in some sort of meeting with the Italians, but they're just not in that bit. So they're not
Yeah, no,
in a
good
big chunk
question.
of the film. And I wonder whether they filmed that piece with them and just thought, no, it doesn't really work, and edited it out. But then
Well, the other two scenes are really funny, aren't they?
They are,
That's
yeah,
two of the best scenes in the film. So I thought that maybe it didn't flow if you put a bit about
Well,
them
that's
having
exactly
a dry
what I was going
meeting
to
with
say.
the
Yeah, I
Italians.
wonder whether they thought, well, that bit can go then if they're cutting it down to advert breaks and stuff to 118 or whatever it was.
Yeah, no, maybe
they
and
just
they just decided that wasn't necessarily essential and ruined the flow, because, like you say, Mark, the other bits are really funny. And then you have a bit later on where I think it's Richard Griffith says, what was it? This religious man. I mean, I'm hoping people will need to have watched it to know what we're on about. So we will recommend that you watch it before you listen to the podcast. But when they get back to that bit we're talking about, where the lads have all been, some of the lads have been to the brothel, and they're all shacked out and a bit pissed. And he says, that religious maniac there's had anyone who listened taken them to church. This lot of been to the brothel. Meanwhile, we've been, banging out the details all day with the other teams, and they've had us over. That is definitely one of the funnier lines. I know there was a subplot which was in the original script, and it was, I don't think they filmed it. I think it was taken out because it kind of just took away from the overall story. I'm wondering if it might have involved more of Dennis. It might have involved more of David Dye Bradley as the sort of little unsung sort of wimpy hero of the team. I just don't know.
Because there's also like, well, do you want to get into the? I mean, I don't think we're going to go through it scene by scene. Do you want to get into it, or do you just want to pick out random bits, or do you want to go?
I think it's worth just very quickly, just skimming over the timeline of the plot, if that's all right. But literally, very, very quickly.
Yeah,
I think we start in what is possibly meant to be the modern age, but I think it's meant to be the mid-60s. We've got an old man.
I think it's 66, isn't it?
66. Oh, to coincide
because
with
it's the World Cup.
That makes sense.
The World Cup's showing on his telly.
because it actually starts with it's Bobby Moore, and then they're talking about England, and a voiceover comes across like they're not the original world champions or whatever, or they're not the first English champions. And then it sort of cuts to a man in a hospital bed, and who comes along but Jim Carver from the Bill, and
or actor Mark Wingate, as he'd probably rather be referred to.
Yes, but for me, he'll always be Jim Carver from the Bill, or I can't remember the character he plays in Quadrophenia, but he's in Quadrophenia as well.
He's a bugger in Quadrophenia, isn't he? And so the old man, he's a nurse or an orderly in a hospital. The old man's clearly dead, and he says he was talking to us last night. He said goodbye rather than see you later. So he obviously knew he was going to die. And he's got this. There's a very harsh nurse who says, never get close to the patients. And she's proper sort of Nurse Ratched style horror show. Really.
Yeah, she's not a Florence Nightingale, is she? She's like, take that down the incinerator, all his stuff. It's not even cold yet.
And then we see him in his little bedsit or whatever, and the old Beatles for Sale albums on the mantelpiece, just to remind us of the era.
Yeah, and you've got clips of the Alf Ramsey talking, and obviously the England team training. So it's obviously setting the lead up to the '66 World Cup, I'm guessing.
And it turns out that the old man who's died, who'd moved to the area when his sons moved to go to the pit, is the Bob Jones character. We assume the Bob Jones character.
Yes.
Played by Dennis Waterman later on in the show, and Jim Carver gets stuck into his bits and bobs in his little box of memories. Now, off Weeders Impact, I was slightly minded of the Series 1 episode with Headley, the awkward old man who they find in a hospital, and he's got a little box of goodies that he's clutching onto, and he's got all photos in there. So it's just a little link, because there is obviously an Off Weeders Impact connection here. And then we're transported back to what I imagine is 1908, 1909, and we see the
Yeah,
team.
they do the little device. Where he's reading. He finds like his sort of memoirs, isn't he? So he starts reading it, and then you get Dennis's voiceover, don't you? With talking about, bands are asleep and all that, and then it cuts.
The birds are asleep. I could be so. Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes,
And you get to hear the great accent, which
it does all right. It does all right. It's not.
So yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, is because obviously the accent in 1909 would have been different to it is today.
Yeah, I think in part it's quite nuanced actually, and it probably is more of a Durham accent. So I think he put some effort into it, but he needn't have bothered because everybody else is just doing sort of generic Geordie accent. I mean, obviously Tim Healy's the real deal, but the rest of them do okay. Ken Hutchinson, David Bradley does all right, although he's Yorkshire. Chuang does come through a little bit. Jeremy Bullock does quite well with it, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, Dennis does okay. And we see them having a slightly chaotic game, don't they? And we are introduced to, is he called Mad Hoggy? Is that what they call him?
Yeah.
Dirty Hoggy. Dirty Hoggy.
Played by Tim Healy, who is easily the memorable character of this show, of this film.
Yeah. And he comes in straight, sliding it's the last minute of the game, sliding tackle. I think a good challenge, but the referee is saying it's a penalty. It's the last minute of the cup. They lose 1-0. He headbutts the bloke he's just tackled, who he claims should be in like the theatre halls for his diving. He headbutts his brother because his brother's called him dirty, and it's like,
he says we keep
sets up the character.
Keep it in the fan.
Yeah.
So there, you see them after the event in the sort of what's it called, in the little
dressing room. Yeah. It's just like a hut, isn't it?
And they're all a bit despondent. And they're all having a bit of a go at him. And then Richard Griffiths turns up. So is he the manager? Is he something to do with the pit rather than the club? Never quite.
It's never.
It's more like, it seems more like the owner, or because I don't know whether they'd have had team managers in those days. I think the captain would sort of pick the team and run it, but he's in charge, and he reads out their recent results and where they are in the league, and they're third from bottom. They've won 3 games all season. They've lost 17 or 18. It's not going particularly well, and obviously it's 2 points for a win in those days. So I think they'd won 3, drawn 10, so they had 16 points out of 30 odd games. So it's not going well for them. But they're all taking it in relatively good spirit. They're having a little bit of a laugh amongst themselves. And he does apologise for giving away the penalty in the end, but he's quite, he's quite volatile about it to begin with.
Yes. Well, this leads to a further point about Arvwider's Impet. When they were pulling Arvwider's Impet together, and they had the character of Oz, Tim Healy was definitely in the running for Oz ahead of Dennis. And the Hoggy character is almost a little bit of a Oz prototype. I
was going to say that. Yeah, it's Tim Healy is playing Oz in this, and saying that's before he was in Arvwider's Impet. So yeah, it is that classic sort of northeastern stereotype: hard man, short fuse, not messing around, taking no nonsense from anyone.
It's like me.
Just like you.
Just like me. Interestingly, and sorry, I was going to save this for later, but we're all over the shop, so that's fine. David Dye Bradley of Kes, he's in this. We'll come to kind of he's a bit of a club mascot, bit of a ball boy.
It's like the sub, as they call him, don't they?
Yes.
Or something. Yeah.
Referred to as a bit of a Nancy boy at one point because he's really he's obsessive about flowers, which I think is a really nice touch from the scriptwriter, that you've got this lad who's obsessed with flowers. He was definitely in the running for Neville, the Kevin Watley character in Arvwider's Impet. He says that he said I'm not suitable for this. Please give it to my friend Kevin Watley. The jury's out on that. But nonetheless, so yes, there is that of readers' impact overflow.
And one other thing, it's not the lady, but the lady who plays Dennis's wife in this, the way she speaks and the tone of her voice and sort of her timbre, if you like, it really reminds me of Brenda from Ovida St. Pet. I had to go back and check it wasn't the actress. They don't look particularly similar, but yeah, I had to go back and check it wasn't the same actress from Ovida St. Pet.
Yeah.
Brenda, as in Kevin Watley's wife.
Neville's wife. Yeah.
Julia Tobin, I believe her name is.
Indeed, that is correct.
Full of info. None of it will ever make me rich. So, I mean, yeah, let's not dwell on it too much. Alongside all this shenanigans, because we then see the boys going off to the pit. We see Dennis in the pit lift, and he says, there's not a day, I've been doing this for 25 years, and there's not a day when my trousers didn't turn brown. It's a lovely image. Because he was, scared of getting in the lift. But it's all fantastic period detail. Alongside this, we see Sir Thomas Lipton, as you put it succinctly earlier, Andy, of tea fame.
Yeah.
Coming up with this idea about the cup and working with the Italian authorities. We also see the FA not really being asked. Actually, the whole thing, there's a scene with the FA and they're sending stuff by pigeon post, and the bloke says, should we not use a telephone, and blah, blah, blah. The whole
and they have a go at the Football League, because it's the Football League. Football League have got a telephone, and they're like dismissing it, and they're using carrier pigeon, and it really, and there's the view of the FA. I mean, particularly in the early 80s, was not good, was it? And I've recently watched the, not the English FA, but the Irish FA, talking about the Roy Keane film Saipan with Steve Coogan as Mick McCarthy, and that obviously paints the Irish FA in an even worse light than how the English FA is felt. But they really come across as out of touch, and that's out of touch for 1909. So it's a good funny scene.
Yeah, the pigeon thing's funny, isn't it? Because he's like the bloke's trying to persuade them to get a bit more modern, isn't he? And he was saying, like, was it someone just chucked the bird out the window and said Wolverhampton 2?
Well,
Switch 1 or something like that, and he just without adding anything to it, just chucked the bird out the window.
I'm just going to turn a light on because I'm sitting in the darkness now.
Okay,
you carry on.
But yeah, the scene with Thomas Lipton and Nigel
Hawthorne,
yeah, that's really fun, with the rice pudding. That's very fun. And he's
Nigel Hawthorne must have been. Well, no, he was Minister, Prime Minister. So he was a big deal by this point.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's like sort of a cameo. I think if we'd be doing the regular show, like Cameo King, it's a small part, but he's very, very funny.
Yes,
and it's just him attempting to eat a bowl of rice pudding while he's being lectured is very, very
pushed and patted.
Yeah, and he's just like, you got more on your front than you have in your mouth, in your belly.
And it's a really good performance by the guy who plays Lipton as well.
Yeah, it is.
And because obviously he's quite a big character, isn't he? Obviously Lipton Tea is huge, still a big name, and he was a self-made man, so he'd come from poverty, and so he has an affinity with the mining guys who are in this team, and that's sort of one of the threads they try and use to link the story as to why West Auckland were chosen as the team. It's sort of that, because he originally wants an England select 11 to represent England, and the FA obviously won't do it, and they want no interest in it. They won't allow any of their league clubs in or anything, so they pick an amateur side, and allegedly it's because Di Bradley's character has written him a letter. But again, mythical, but it makes a very nice story.
Yeah. Andrew Keir plays Lipton, and
who is the father of Julie T. Wallace?
Really?
Yeah.
Who stars with?
Yeah, Dennis Waterman in the Lives and Loves of a She-Devil. It all comes round.
I love this shit. Have you ever been to that lighthouse as featured in?
No.
Rick Blackburn. He's been. I think they moved it because of maybe because of erosion or something. They're like wholesale picked it up, moved it. Anyway,
Whereabouts was it? Do you remember?
I don't know. You'll have to ask Rick. It's
Yeah.
famous. It is famous.
Yeah. I mean, that was an incredibly
Devonish way,
popular
I think,
series.
but I don't know.
Huge series at the time, won lots of awards, didn't it? He sort
Yeah.
of took over TV in '86 or whenever it was. It was very, very successful.
Well, Julie T is on Twitter. Andy, should you wish to tag her in to say,
Oh,
you know,
is she?
she got a mention? Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, her dad was very good in this. Very, very good.
he absolutely was. So Miss Nigel Hawthorne comes to the club, tells them they take a bit of persuading, they're up for it, then they're down for it, and then there's a bit of contemplation, and then there's a lovely scene with Dennis Waterman and his wife in their house, which is bare. There's no furniture. They've obviously sold the furniture to raise the fare to go to Italy, and she says, "Oh, you know, don't worry about it. You'd have." I can't remember the phrase she uses. But you wouldn't have been able to handle the disappointment of not going to Italy.
Yeah.
And you see them on the back of a horse and carriage with wardrobes and stuff like that. And then another lad who's in the team, we've seen him on his bike earlier, which he uses to get to church, and he goes, "Here's the bike," blah blah blah. So there's a real sense of the community coming together. So the sell all the kit.
And his wife gives Dennis her dad's fob watch as well to sell.
Absolutely.
So effectively, they're all bankrupting themselves to get out to Italy. But the pit owner he's not going to pay them obviously while they're not there, but he has sort of guaranteed that their jobs will be there when they get back, and it comes across as a sort of guarantee rather than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we see the lads in various states of transit, and we see them in waiting rooms, on trains, and on boats, either invariably drunk, asleep, and then they're being sick on the boat. A key scene I forgot to mention: Richard Griffiths is giving them all a pep talk about staying away from dodgy women, and it's quite a serious. They do it perfectly. He says, when I was in the Boer War, and he says "Boer" in a really dramatic way, and they're all raising their eyebrows, blah blah blah. And he basically says there was chaps there who went with these women of ill repute. Some of them went blind, some of them went mad.
Yeah.
And in one instance, one of the lads, his appendage fell clean off. And then he pauses, and then he says, "Right, what's for tea?"
Yeah.
And someone says,
Yeah.
"Black pudding sandwiches."
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I love that little way he just go, "Have we got the sandwiches?"
No, that was it. Have we got the sandwiches?
Have we got the sandwiches?
So yeah, very good. So Dennis, via his narration, tells us, that they didn't really have much money, but they could get bottles of wine dead cheap. So he pretty much missed all of France, had nothing, saw nothing of Paris, and they basically woke up in Italy. So that's pretty good. And then they do arrive in Italy, and there is what's it called? A reception
welcoming
party.
committee,
Welcoming committee. And then there's a bit of a twist in the tale.
Yeah, so the welcoming committees say, "Welcome Woolwich Arsenal," and we're not Woolwich Arsenal.
Yeah, and Woolwich Arsenal were a very, very, very famous, internationally famous football team at the time.
Yeah, and this is another thread where, isn't it, about how they got chosen? Is they West Auckland, WA, Woolwich Arsenal, WA. There's some story that Lipton wrote on his a message to his secretary and said, "Get in touch with WA," and so she got in touch with West Auckland, and he'd meant Woolwich Arsenal. But again, I'm not sure that's
possibly
necessarily
apocryphal.
true. Yeah, I think it's apocryphal, but I think everything is in this story.
I know geographically there's a massive disconnect, but is there any Woolwich Arsenal isn't what then became Arsenal, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, the Arsenal.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. There is also what they call West Bishop Auckland were quite a successful team at the time.
Yeah.
And there is a suggestion that that's who they'd wanted. But yeah, in the research done at the time, done subsequently, nobody can quite give a definitive answer as to why West Auckland were chosen, which is a bit odd,
Well, whoever did, it was a stroke of genius. Bear in mind they won it twice. So,
yeah,
absolutely. And all the opposing teams, they were all professionals,
Yeah.
whereas West Auckland are a proper amateur 11. So, when England could still turn out amateurs and beat the professionals of the overseas countries.
There you
Didn't
go.
last for very long, but it was the era.
The boys get checked in their hotel, and apologetically they are told you might have to share. They don't give a shit because they're in
No.
these really nice hotels with running hot water. There's a brilliant scene where Dennis Waterman says, "It's running hot water, man," or something like that.
It's hot. Yeah.
And then
It's hot
there's-
water, man.
and then, was that Jamaican?
He's done it. He's
And
done
then-
a first accent. He's going to break into Bob Marley in a minute.
Jamaican or Welsh, I couldn't decide. There's there's obviously a bidet and a toilet, and they say, "Oh, there's two netties." And I don't know the.
I mean, it does play on every British stereotype of foreigners of the early 80s, and we just Mind Your Language is only a few years before. It sort of plays whether it's food, drink, culture, their way of life, the kissing on the cheeks, all these things.
That's a
The
funny
classic. The classic things that the British typically thought of Johnny Foreigner in the early 80s, and obviously thought of in the 1909s, 1910s or whatever. But they all come out here, and to very good comedy effect mostly.
Yeah, and it's not rude, is it? It's just silly.
No.
It's all done.
Yeah,
nice.
it's just trying to eat spaghetti bolognese with a spoon. Which, to be fair, to this day I don't do that. I cut it up with a knife and fork
I
like any
thought
proper
of you when I
Englishman
saw
should.
Dennis cutting it up. Like, you do that. I was just like,
It's the only sensible way. Otherwise, you get it all over your shirt. And if I was wearing this lovely 1982 England World Cup shirt, eating spaghetti bolognese, it would be just covered in it by the end. Even if I did tie it down my neck.
You have reminded me, Mark, like you say, of that scene where they land in Italy to the Woolwich Arsenal welcome committee, and the bloke comes over and kisses Richard Griffiths on both cheeks, and all the team start laughing to, "Oh, you've made a friend there." I mean, it's the big old Brits abroad as much as anything.
Yes.
So yes, you're right. I mean, basically some like standard fish out of water type scenarios, like the spaghetti trying to order a beer in a local bar, and he's going ales, and then the waiter's going
draft ales,
and he goes beer Siete, which I assume is 7, or beer Siete, which is presumably 7, and then he brings it out, and Tim Healy goes beer Siete. He downs it in water, says, "Oh, didn't like that."
yeah.
And then some ladies come along,
Do.
and it turns out they are ladies of ill repute, and you see them in the brothel, and Tim Healy sat like that because he's a married man and he wants nothing to do with it.
He's not having any of it, is he? No, he doesn't want anything to do with it.
But then the sort of, how can I put this without being a terrible misogynist, the sort of big piece, whether she's the madam or whatever, she starts talking to him, and he says, "I want nothing to do with it. I'm married, blah blah blah. But if I was going to have one, I'd have one of the good ones upstairs, one of the young ones, not you."
Yeah, that's a brilliant
tupping.
scene.
He uses the phrase tupping as well, doesn't he?
Tupping, yeah, brilliant.
It's a magic moment of that.
So they win their first match, and I've got a question for you. I've just watched it today, but I can't remember. So they win. There's 2 matches, and they win both of them. And there's one of them where at half time they're all sat down, and Dirty Huggy, gives them this rousing sort of speech about, let's get out there and show them some iron. We might not be fancy footballers, but we're hard men. I'm the 4th generation of Colliers. Let's get out there and show them some iron. Is that in the first match or the second match in the final?
I think it's the first match, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah,
but it is very, and again, it sort of plays to that British steel will overcome foreign skill, because they're looking at the players and they think, oh, they're pretty good. These are good players, and then they're then. But if we kick them, then they're not going to be able to. Then they won't. It's a classic. They don't like it up. So if you get stuck in and give them a whack, they won't be dancing around you so much.
They play the Swiss, don't they? I think it's not true to how I described earlier on in the
A load of lads
podcasting.
from
Yeah.
Zurich, I think he calls it,
Yeah.
or a load of Swiss lads or something like that.
Yeah, they play the Swiss, and then the final they play Juventus, which is what they do in the second.
It's
one, but-
because it's Winterthur and Stuttgart in the first. Stuttgart in the semi-final they play, and then they play Winterthur in the final in real life. But in this one, it's Winterthur and then Juventus.
Yeah,
and it was Torino was the Italian representative in real world in the first one rather than Juventus, and Torino represented in both actually. So Italy had two teams in the second World Cup.
still didn't qualify.
No, they've had a bad run. I mean, they may have won it 4 times overall, but they've had a bad run early on and recently.
Yeah,
So they win. I mean, I know we're shooting ahead, but they win the second match. They win the final. Everyone's happy. We see them having a Dennis. So it's done very well. We forgot to mention another of Wheelers in Petter. What's his name? John Bowler plays Malcolm,
right,
Malcolm the Architect from Series 2. So he's in the team. And
he's in Minder as well.
Yes, and this concept of, God, I'm trying to talk football. How useless is this? Substitutes. When someone's
Yes,
no,
injured. Yes,
when someone's injured, blah blah blah. This has already been introduced as a kind of alien concept to the lads from West Auckland. They're like, you what? Somebody gets injured and they go off and someone else comes on. You what? But anyway, they bring on David Bradley, Di Bradley. He's slightly underused, I would say. He's, like I say, the club mascot. He's the one who's probably, according to the film, got them into the thing. And then he has his moment of glory where he puts on these boots that are too big for him, and I think he scores a brilliant goal or something like that. So there's a bit of I suspect if there was an arc in terms of the arc or the subplot that was cut out, it might have been to do with him, and it builds up to this sort of, this crescendo where he's the hero.
yeah.
But then Dennis Waterman, does he get a penalty and scores it?
Yes, yeah.
And they're the winners.
You always have to have a penalty in football films, don't you? At the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a high tension one. I mean, they could have done with Roy Ward Baker or someone like that, maybe at the
Yeah.
I think a car would have come flashing through the scene, wouldn't it? It would have just crashed into the middle of everyone.
I've got to do it, Dennis. Anyway, so that's another thing. If this had been filmed, it's obviously lots of it's filmed in Italy, but if it had been filmed here, pretending they were in Italy, we would have had various non-white actors playing Italians, regardless of where they were from. So there is a bit more authenticity here.
This is true.
So we see them. There's a bit of an after tournament reception for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And an awarding of the trophy. So
Yes,
Mr. Lipton is there to award what's it called? What's it officially called? The Sir Thomas Lipton Trophy.
Yeah.
And, then do we see Dennis Waterman and Tim Healy attempting to be poached by the manager of Juventus, which again seems unlikely, but there must be something in it.
I've seen nothing about that anywhere else. The only bit I've seen that is in the film. So again, I think it's probably mythologizing a little bit, but they do get invited to join Juventus.
I think this
as
is
professionals.
this is Dennis and Tim wanting to be poached by Juventus. So making sure that's written into the script. And he has to do a speech, doesn't he, when he gets the trophy? And he just goes like, "Cheers,
Cheers."
ciao."
Yeah, he stands up and he thinks it's his time to speak, and then he realizes to look too soon, so he sits down.
It's
Really good. The night before the final, I think it's the night before the final, there's a wonderful shot of Tim Healy and Dennis Waterman in separate beds, as I imagine was their want. And I think they've both got the caps on, they've both got a bottle of beer, and it's just this wonderfully sort of symmetrical shot, and it just works really, really well. And then we find out they return home, and they do it again the next year or the year after.
Well, they get a real sort of hero's reception when they get back, don't they? There is and I think that part of the story does seem to be true, that did happen, that they were treated as heroes when they came back.
But the very sad bit is that the club folded in 1912. Having won it for the second time in 1911, they'd effectively bankrupted themselves by going to Italy twice. And they ended up folding in 1912. They did constitute in 1914. So as West Auckland FC rather than just West Auckland.
And they had
So
to had to sell the trophy to the landlady of the local pub.
And which we're classically, like every trophy in Britain, it got stolen. And
Yes.
and currently is no one knows where it is. But
Which is really quite sad. It was on I think it was in the pub for years, and then it got moved to Working Men's Club, and then it was stolen from.
Because it got sold back. The landlady who bought it off them to keep the club afloat, effective, or to settle the club's debts. See, she had it at the pub for years. Then she sold it back to the club for £100, having bought it for 40 or something. Many years later, and then it was put in a Working Men's Club, and then it was stolen.
I was wondering.
But they've got a replica now. They've got a like-for-like replica on display.
I was wondering, do you think, as a Minder on the Slate, do our bit for West Auckland FC and try and set an appeal to return the trophy?
Yes.
Because
pull that off.
It's 30 years ago now. Like, and if you were a ne'er-do-well and, nicked it for a prank all those years ago, but, now is time to give it back. So if we can get the trophy returned, that would be good.
It's a big old trophy as well. So it's not, unless you melted it down.
So if anyone knows or has any clues to its whereabouts, get in touch on our socials or in the comments on this on YouTube, and it would be good if we could get it returned. Because we can
take it back anonymously. There'll be no comeback.
Yeah. So please,
it could be an Arthur's lockup.
Could be.
So please return the trophy. We want it back.
Dennis was involved in the replacement, Mark. Sorry to interrupt.
Was he?
Yeah, they got it from Sheffield, and Dennis was involved in helping to do that. But sorry, as you were, my friend.
Well done, Dennis.
Well done, Dennis.
But there was one great story about it, because obviously when England did host and win the World Cup in 1966, the actual Jules Rimet trophy was stolen and famously found by, what was the name of the dog?
Pickles, as made doubly famous in the great sitcom Early Doors. Yeah.
But originally when it was stolen and they didn't think they were going to have it available for the World Cup final, the Lipton Trophy was going to replace the Jules Rimet Trophy at Wembley and be presented to the winners of the 1966 World Cup. Luckily, Pickles found the World Cup under a bush. But
I saw a photo with a caption alluding to this, and I had no clue what any of it meant, and I couldn't find any more info on it. So that makes total sense now.
That's interesting. Imagine if you won the World Cup though, and they gave you that. It's like Lipton's team trophy. It's like
bigger than the Jules Rimet Trophy, wasn't it?
It is. But,
Jules Rimet's like that.
There is a moment towards the end of the film where they've gone home and they've had the hero's reception, and then I think something said about how it was kept on display, blah blah blah, in the club, and then I can only assume it's a clip from inside the club or the social club, as was in 1981 or 1982, and there's a big sign in the background. It's obviously modern age, and there's a pub sign, beer sign in the background. There's Samson. And that was a Vaux beer. Vaux was a Sunderland brewery. It's come back now as a sort of, some friends of mine have brought the brand actually, but at the time it was a huge old Sunderland brewery, and they will have supplied a lot of the clubs around the northeast, definitely in Durham. And Samson was my bitter of choice as a young man, until the brewery went in 1999, but a wonderful beer. You can still get it now. They've brought it back with the recipe, but it was gorgeous.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had it.
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, Vaux Brewery, an interesting one. But we'll have an offline discussion about that another time. So so that is kind of the plot. It moves along mostly quite quickly. There's a couple of down bits. So I would say if you're watching it and you're getting a bit, some of the early bits with Lipton, I mean, there's funny parts, but then it's also a bit dry as well. You've got to stick with it. But I think there's lots to get stuck into in this.
Yeah, I think it moves along pretty quickly. It's quite short, isn't it, for a film? It's an hour and 18 minutes.
Well worth a watch. And I do remember watching it before. I assume around 82, maybe on a repeat later in maybe 84,
Yeah,
85.
one of the
But-
one of the YouTube. Sorry to interrupt. One of the YouTube clips has a bit of a continuity announcement beforehand, and she says another chance to see this critically acclaimed film or whatever. So it obviously was repeated at least once, but it's a shame it's not. There are better copies of it out there because it is good, and like some of the scenes in Italy look good, but the copy I watched was so ropey. You can imagine on a big screen projected, it would look pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah,
It's a short film, isn't it?
Yeah, I found listening to it with earphones in was a lot better than just I'd watched it on telly on YouTube to begin with, and the sound was a bit muffled, and it was a lot better through headphones. But it's great that it's available out there just on YouTube, and just for the performances of Tim Healy, Richard Griffith, and Nigel Hawthorne, I think it's more than worth a watch.
Yeah, they're all really good, aren't they? I was surprised how funny it was and how good it was. I think I did feel it probably could have, it could have had a couple more scenes in it. It got it all over. I mean, same with our podcast. Some of our podcasts go on forever all through it. And it did seem there's not much to it. But I think that is partly because, as we said at the beginning, there's not much to go on. There's nothing to go on. So they obviously had to.
And how have the Star Wars crowd not got a hold of this? It's like Boba Fett wins the World Cup. That's got to be a thing, isn't it? It's not big in the Star Wars fandom as far as I'm aware.
No, it doesn't. It's just you Google it and there's not much out there at all about the real story or the film. It's a little bit of a curio, really. It's become.
Like I say, when I was younger, this was like almost, by the fact that it hadn't been repeated that much, I think it only got that repeated maybe that once or twice. It become this kind of thing that people spoke of in really sort of reverential terms. I remember an old family friend of mine had a Betamax, and he lent me the Betamax with a tape of this just so I could watch it, but I couldn't get it to work. So yeah, it was just like one of those things that like your parents would speak. Oh, you've got to see that, it's magic, blah blah blah. But the club, I've got it on DVD, but it is just a rip from VHS, and the club themselves have done that. I'm assuming. I think it's slightly on the what's the word I'm looking for?
Sketchy.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, I agree with them. So they've sold copies, to raise funds for the club, presumably. So if you were able to buy from them directly, I would definitely recommend you do so.
Is that a better copy then?
I wouldn't say so. It's the same as what will be on YouTube, which is, I like the way I nodded at the telly. The YouTube, it'll be ripped from VHS because it did have an official VHS release.
Yeah,
I had
you
that
can
years
get them.
ago. Yeah, but very watchable. So, gents, this is a Minder podcast, so let's bring it back to brass tacks.
Okay.
What Minder personnel do we have in this?
Well, quite a few. Well, I think we've mentioned pretty much all of them, haven't we?
Well, we've mentioned Richard Griffiths, who is in Dream House, which Mark mentioned earlier. I would say possibly the most divisive or second most divisive episode of Minder ever. What would you say the first or the other most divisive episode is?
Monday Night Fever, clearly. Dream House it's a strange. There's some great bits in it, but obviously we're going to come to this.
I'm looking forward to doing Dream House.
But yeah, it's a question of whether Richard Griffiths is a genius in it or overacts, or maybe it's a terribly written part. I don't know, but it's an interesting watch. I think.
But Richard Griffiths, whenever he's on screen in anything, he always gives it 110%, doesn't he? So he's
100%.
never.
You can't give it more than 100%.
He gives it 100%. He's very, he gives it his all, doesn't he? He's never quiet, and he's the same in this. He's very larger than life.
He had one of the best lines in this, I thought. Well, he had probably quite a few of the best lines. But there's a bit where he's leaving them and he says, "Good night, gentlemen." It was just the way he pronounced it. Just made me chuckle.
and he corrects them on, because they're calling it lira, which as
Yeah.
far as I'm aware is correct. He's like, no, you idiots. He's like, Lyra. It's Lyra.
Lyra.
And there's just a lot of lovely little bits with Richard Griffiths in this. He's trying to say his name to Nigel Hawthorne as well. And he's going, bear on. And it's Baron. And he was like, it's bear on.
Like
Apparently, Sharon, not a Star Wars called Monday Night Fever.
Monday Night Fever.
Apparently, and I haven't cross-referenced this yet, in With Neil and I, obviously, Richard Griffiths in a career-defining role as Uncle Monty after the career-defining role in Dreamhouse. Apparently, there's a picture of him as a young man, and it's a picture of him in the World Cup, a captain still. Apparently, I haven't cross-referenced it.
But there can't be much difference, is there?
Yeah, it can only be a couple of years.
So, what
But
was
he's
with
probably
now,
made-
86?
Yeah, no, you're right. And he's obviously meant to be probably a lot older as Uncle Monty. Because
That's right.
he looks quite young in this, I've got to say. Probably only about 26 or something. Quick bit of trivia for you. At the beginning, I believe they're playing Stockton, the first game of the
Yes, they are.
in the film. He was possibly from Stockton, but he definitely went to Stockton College. That much I know for a fact. Anyway,
Okay.
Nice little link.
thank you.
He
You'll
would have
remember
been-
that.
He would have been 37, maybe, when...
That doesn't surprise us, and to be really honest, I'm surprised he's that old at this point. I don't even think
35, maybe.
don't even think he
yeah,
looks
yeah,
it.
actually, maybe even younger, yeah. I can't do the maths.
So we have Richard Griffiths. We've talked about John Bowler from Half Readers and Pet and then The Bill. He was in Series 10, played a policeman in One Flew Over the Parents' Nest.
Yeah.
Tim Healy, he played a minder in Minder. A Star, Is Gone.
Star
which
Is
I
Gone.
One of my
really look-
favourites.
Yeah, I look forward to getting into that
one of my favourites.
We've mentioned Ken Hutchinson. We will be looking at Ken Hutchinson very soon because he is in
Yeah, next
episode
episode.
1, Series 2, National Pelmet. He came up at the recent Sweeney reunion, and apparently he got to take this with a pinch of salt. But according to one of the other actors there, his ambition was to be a Hellraiser a la Richard Burton, a la Peter O'Toole, etc., etc. He was more bothered about that than, actually being an actor of renown. That's probably a bit unfair, and I might have paraphrased it wrongly, but that's what was said at the time. But he did like to drink. There's no denying that.
And he's quite, in the Minder episode we're coming to, he's quite scary in it, isn't he? He's
Yeah.
a proper fierce performance.
Yeah, and it's not like the usual type. He often plays hard men and sort of quietly, maniacal people. But this is, I totally agree with you, Mark. This is a whole different gravy in this next episode. Finally, there's one of the team, and it's an actor called Lloyd Maguire, who I think he was in. So I remember when I was younger, he was in Teachers, with Matthew Horn and blah blah blah. But I think when I was a kid, I think he was on kids' telly, not finger mouth, but that kind of thing. But he is he's in 2 episodes of Minder, but most memorably, he's one of the jurors in Poetic Justice, and he's one of the ones who's like really sees through Arthur, really gets pissed off with Arthur. And I really look forward to discussing that episode because that definitely features some of my all-time favourite Minder moments, I would say.
Yeah. I remember watching that one as a kid, loving that. My dad loved that one. I remember that.
Yeah, but I look forward to getting into it. Let's not go into it too much. So, and then like we say, we've got other memorable cast members. You mentioned Nigel Hawthorne. We've mentioned David Dye Bradley,
Who we all met at the Kess screening, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that was good.
Yeah, we should have asked him.
Great man.
I did ask him via his partner about 2 hours ago if he had any reflections he wanted to share, and she said, "I think you've left it too late." So I haven't heard anything. I'll just double check, but I don't think I have. But I know she said that they all had a really lovely time. So, yeah, and he does well here. I think he plays the little sort of wimpy kid quite well.
I think
Even
he's
though-
great.
Yeah. And then he has his sort of Roy of the Rovers kind of moment. I think maybe I would suggest that we maybe just have, are there any general reflections or takeaways from any of us before we conclude matters today? Andy, do you want to
I'm
start?
hoping that I was just going to step in and say I'm hoping that we've created, the mentality and the right atmosphere for England going on to win what is the current World Cup. We're recording this a day before the last 32 game against Dr. Congo, and I look forward to beating the Doctors and moving on to Sunday night's game. So if we, obviously, generally the African teams seem to be doing quite well at the moment, and the European teams not so much. Come off Germany losing on penalties last night, much to obviously, which is a terrible shame. But yeah, I'm hoping it's creating the right atmosphere, and we've timed it perfectly for an England World Cup win.
Any sweepstakes, gents?
Not for me.
I've got Norway.
Norway,
Oh,
they won tonight.
Put it at Jordy angle, Mark.
It is a much better angle. Makes me look less ill. It made me look very ill earlier on.
It looks like a halo now. So
Let's sing Beyonce.
the one fun reflection that I have, which I was thinking while I was watching it and subsequently as well, I think this would make a very good series, like a 6-episode, 8-episode series that they could do now. It's a great story. You can use artistic license. You could flesh out all the characters because there's, you could do the backstory, the wives, the FA. You could do everything. It certainly could be a longer thing. I think it's ripe for a remake. So if there are any TV companies listening, we'll happily knock them up a script.
And Tim Healy can play an elder statesman in it, so there's a link to the original.
Full World 73 Productions. They're dealing this kind of thing pretty well. I think James Corden's now an investor in them. They're from Sunderland, so full.
He likes his football as well, doesn't he? So
yeah. So Full World.
He could do the Richard Griffiths character.
We might lose investment on this project at this rate, but I take your point.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think it would be easily make a good series. I think you could even do series 2. We could do the second one.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. Some stories are so huge and potentially multifaceted. Like you say, digging into the various. I mean, I think that's one of the things the show does really well. Or sorry, the film does really well. From nowhere, they've come up with these, and they don't over-egg them. But you've got the religious maniac, you've got the hard man, you've got the little soft lads, you've got the anchor of the group, and you could dig into the various, like you say, their private lives, what's going on, and the sacrifices they make to achieve their dream and go to Italy and win an early version of the World Cup.
Yeah.
And my hero, Brian Robson, is from Durham. So and he acted in Murphy's Mob, I remember, with Ken Hutchinson.
Did he?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was absolutely dreadful at acting in that. But I'm sure he's improved by now. He'll be, he could make an appearance as the manager. He's and he's got the accent. It's ready to go. Oh, this is looking good.
Yeah, so we're gonna start work on the remake, and we're gonna try and find the real trophy. Takeaways from today.
Oh, I like it. I don't wish to slander, but apparently Mr. Robson would have been good company for Mr. Waterman and Mr. Healy in their prime. That is the strong rumour.
That is definitely the case.
Yes,
it was this England shirt that he scored after 27 seconds in the 1982 World Cup against France. Probably France and Brazil, the best teams in that World Cup. Didn't win it. Terrible team. Italy won it, but you never can't have everything.
The takeaway from me is that there's something about the fact it's shot on film. It's a period drama, but we're watching it and it's like over 40 years old already. There's something about all those factors when combined and you watch them. it seems really authentic. It's the same when you watch when the boat comes in, etc., etc. It's the same when you early Catherine Cooks and stuff. Not that I watch that kind of stuff, if I'm honest. But the combination of it being shot on film, period, and old in any case. So even when we're seeing them recreating, the 1909, we're seeing it in 1981, and in the nicest possible way. There will be bits of Durham in 1981, 1982 that didn't look that dissimilar to what it looked like in 1909. So there's a real. I love it when you can watch stuff and you're like transported, and you have just a little uninterrupted moment where you just fully accept that what you're watching is you're just totally swept away with it. So yeah, I love that. There's obviously, gents, we usually have the Hall of Fame. We usually have marks out of 10. We also have the Caesar's Palace versus Caesar's Salad. We can't do that today because this is not our core business. This is not an episode. So in the context of this being Minder related, is this Worthy Waterman?
Definitely Worthy Waterman. It's I think it's really good. I hadn't seen it before, I don't think. I knew of it, but I hadn't seen it, and I really enjoyed it. It's funny, it's well acted, it's just got everything going for it. And I just want it to be out there so you can see it better. So, like a DVD, Blu-ray, or a screening somewhere so we can see it in all its glory.
Mark's gone.
Is that
there? It is. Yeah.
Is that I just had a power cut down here.
Wow,
but it's
that's
come
the
back
second
now.
one you've had. That's the second one you've had.
It does.
Doing this.
I can hear because there's a fridge down here and it goes out every now and then. So it must happen quite a lot that power just goes. But it cut the Wi-Fi, I think, and so I could hear you on a laptop, but I generally lost the plot. I do think it's worthy. I hope not.
But was that noise? Yeah, that was.
Yeah, was that your cat?
No, that was my daughter getting herself a glass of water. But talking of cat, we're gonna have to edit all this out. Chloe, Bruce is still out. Can you go and get him?
Bruce the cat. Podcast mascot.
Yeah. How close did we get? Like we were literally at the last end, and then it's all gone. It's all gone
pizza. So Mark,
but so we go 3, 2, 1, and I'm back. And I think it is Worthy Waterman, even though Dennis isn't in it very much, and he's not like he's obviously the creator and the driving force behind it, and we know how much he loves his football. So this is like the ideal thing for him, isn't it? It's like the dream project. But it's not really in it that much. And he very much stands aside and let other people be the star of the show, whether it's Richard Griffiths, Nigel Hawthorne, Tim Healy. And for me, Tim Healy's absolutely amazing in this. So I think it's definitely Worthy Waterman, though it's quite subtle from Dennis himself.
Yes.
Well, you two have said yes, so that means I've got to go with the consensus. I, however, am pleased to report, fully agree this is Worthy Waterman. And I agree with you, Andy. This needs a full bit of a spruce up, and it needs a nice BFI re-release or something like that. Because this is too good to not be out there,
And it's a story that should be better known as well. The story in itself should be better known than it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Excellent. Does that conclude our affairs?
I think so. Thank you.
Our first special.
Yeah. Thanks for listening or watching. Yeah, be sure to click the subscribe and follow button because apparently that helps us. So yeah, there's a button, subscribe and follow. That would be really helpful to us. So please share all our posts and spread the word and keep all the comments coming because we really appreciate them. I hope you've enjoyed today and thank you very much. And we will see you next time.
See you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Winchester 79 production with music by Lee Smith. We hope this has been so good for you. See you next time.
See you later.